Concerns are already being raised by U.S. postal workers that cost cutting by Trump's new head of the post office is resulting in days-long backlogs in delivery time. They say it could put at risk their ability to deliver ballots in time for the election. Then there's the fact that most states, frankly, are not accustomed to handling the expected surge in mail-in ballots. In 2016, in the majority of states, fewer than 10% of voters cast their ballots by mail. It's not that big a deal. Many of those states are now rushing to line up the best vendors for printing and distributing paper ballots. They're also amending absentee ballot rules and making plans to hire and train enough workers to count ballots by hand. When you're looking for answers on how to do this, a great place to turn is the states that have already got experience doing this at scale. As election law experts wrote recently in the Washington Post, state officials who manage elections with the highest mail voting rates know how to handle these risks. They've identified qualified vendors for printing ballots and envelopes, partnered with the U.S. Postal Service to deliver them, developed tracking systems so voters can see where their ballots are in the delivery stream, and found ways to review signatures and count ballots that reduce the number of rejected ballots. That's exactly the kind of expertise that states like Colorado can bring to the game. The state's been using all-mail voting statewide since 2014. I'm pleased to say now that joining us now is the Colorado Secretary of State, Jena Griswold. Secretary Griswold, good to see you again. Thank you for being with us. I want to just be really clear here, because I think that there are real issues that you understand that we've got to deal with respect to mail-in voting, virtually none of which have anything to do with fraud.
Well, that is exactly right, Ali, and thank you for having me on for this very important conversation. I do want to share with you, Ali, that my mom is a nurse. She's been working on a COVID unit saving lives. And as Secretary of State, I want to do the same thing. It's 2020. Unlike Donald Trump, I do not want to force Americans to risk their health to cast their ballots, to exercise their most fundamental right. Vote by mail is akin to wearing a mask. It saves lives. And this nation needs vote by mail for all immediately.
Let's talk about the things that you know. And I just want to quote from the Washington Post on Colorado. As Colorado switched to vote by mail, it implemented the first intelligent ballot tracking program. Election officials use an intelligent mail barcode that is specific to the voter's envelope. It allows the voter to track the ballot at every step of the process, where the ballot is on the way to them, where their ballot went after they dropped it off, similar to how you track a package. So as you said, it's 2020. Everybody who orders anything online knows that this exists. We can do it for ballots the same we can do for the billions of packages that get shipped around this country every day.
That's exactly right. Look, these are not complicated systems. We're really talking about having people register to vote, sending them a mail ballot, and then having them return it either in the mail at a ballot drop box or even voting in person. What the bigger issue is that the president and his allies are trying to use the pandemic to suppress the vote. That includes by lying about vote by mail, by lying about saying that he's going to change the election date or even has the authority to do so, which he absolutely does not, to the attacks on the post office. This is a president who is scared and using any type of tactic to try to suppress the vote to his benefit in November.
Thank you for reminding us that the president is not allowed to delay the election. The president's term will end at noon on January 20th, 2021. The Washington Post article I just talked to you about also said that the Postal Service is recommending that voters request their ballots at least 15 days before Election Day and mail their completed ballots at least 1 week before the due date. There's a certain amount of logistics that people have to understand. So the Secretary of State can get it right, and in your state you get it right. But there is some experience that people in Colorado have had with this that people in other parts of the country have not. As I mentioned, there are 8 states that wouldn't allow you to vote by mail if you said that you were worried about catching the coronavirus.
You know, it's just ridiculous, the lengths that folks will go to suppress the vote and expand voter suppression. And I would say Colorado has the key. We just set a record turnout even during the pandemic. And that's because the Colorado voting model works. It includes in-person voting, early voting, same-day voter registration, and the use of mail ballots. And that policy that you just commented on from the Postal Service, that's what we do in Colorado. We make sure that ballots are sent out about 3 weeks before election. And then about a week, we start telling Coloradans no longer return them by the mail because we need to get them by Election Day. And that's why we have hundreds of mail ballot drop boxes across the state, and also why in-person voting is so important. We need vote by mail for the entire nation. No American should have to risk their health to cast a ballot. Also, even when we aren't in pandemic times, vote by mail increases participation. We increased our turnout rate by 9%, and that's what I want to see the whole country doing.
So if we didn't have a president working against this, it would still be a challenge to get all 50 states up to speed in 94 days. Who sets this up? Who does this? If the president's working against this, we still have to do the preparation necessary. There are states who need to be on the phone with you, understanding. How do you pick vendors for this? How do you make sure it happens? What kind of tracking software do you use? Are we ready for this?
We can be ready for it. We still have some time to make sure that all Americans have their voices heard. And Allie, rest assured, all those secretaries have my phone number or can have my phone number. And I've been working with secretaries of state across the nation, and our elections division has also been working with other states to share best practices. But the question of who is ultimately responsible is both the states, but it also should be the federal government. The federal government, Congress passed $400 million in election funding. Secretaries of state are asking them to increase it. We need to make sure that we're investing in our democracy so that all Americans can have their voice heard. And we cannot allow the president to weaponize vote by mail, which is the best way to vote during a pandemic. It allows us to social distance and help stop the spread of COVID-19. And we need the entire country to adopt Colorado's election model.